Hey, I haven't been in a scandal for a whole week.
Well, this podcast is still young.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. We might be able to cover something that'll cause trouble with any
Yeah,
luck.
you are, out of all the people that I'm friends with, you are probably the most misrepresented friend that I have. And I defend you quite often, and I don't get where people are coming from with you. I don't understand their inability to listen to your words. And instead, they try to generalize and formulate these distorted descriptions of who you are and what you stand for. And it's very strange to me. And I don't know. I mean, I kind of do know that you're challenging a lot of people's beliefs and the way they've structured these beliefs, but it's very frustrating to me. And I'm sure it must be way more frustrating for you.
Well, it's kind of it's surreal to me because I was talking with my kids about this the other day. You know, the way people think I am, especially if they read, the hit pieces that the journalists have written, and maybe even watch me in those interactions, they think I'm provocative and they think I like combat and conflict and, and I don't. I'm not combative, actually, and I really don't like conflict that much. I go out of my way quite a bit to avoid it. And, I'm misogynist, except that almost all the people I've ever worked with in my whole life have been women, and I've been in a women-dominated field. And I never thought of myself as right-wing, that's for sure. I mean, maybe now that the far left has gone completely off the deep end, it's like, well, maybe I'd be classified as a conservative, but that's mostly because as a social scientist, I learned that you shouldn't conduct large-scale experiments on huge swaths of the population and assume that your stupid idea is going to work out correctly, because it won't. You can't even get people to behave properly in a lab for like half an hour. So how you think you're going to get a whole society to do what you want, as a consequence of passing a piece of legislation is beyond me. But yeah, it's and here's something else that's weird. Like if you read the newspapers on this new, I got disinvited from Cambridge Divinity School. I mean, what a thing to be disinvited from, a divinity school. Christ, you have to be Satan himself to get disinvited from a divinity school. And, well, it's so crazy. And I just wanted to go down there and learn some more about the biblical stories, the Exodus stories. That was the idea. And then to get disinvited, to have that be a whole big scandal, it was just like, what the hell, man? It's quite the crazy situation. And then, so you read about all this and you see this online and you'd think, God, his life must just be hell because of all the controversy. But then when I go out in the streets or to my lectures or anywhere, it's completely different. It's unbelievably different. Like, so now if I walk down the street, I mean, when you walk down the street, you just must get identified all the time, eh? Like, yeah. If you go out in an hour, how many people will come up to you?
Depends where I go. But if I'm in Hollywood, it's pretty crazy. If I go around young people, if you see men and they have shaved heads and tattoos, it gets nuts. Those are my people. Muscular men.
So if I go out, and I'm walking down the street, and it doesn't really matter where, usually I get approached 5 or 6 times in an hour by people. And, they're always very polite and they're very apologetic, and they are happy about something they've read or listened to or whatever. Or often they talk about our podcast. That's pretty damn common. That was common throughout Europe as well. And, they tell me about some dark part of their life and how they're doing much better, and, how their friends have been watching my videos and they're feeling better about it. And so it's just ridiculously positive, just all the time. And then when I go to my lectures, it's the same thing. It's like crazily positive. So, we've had 350,000 people at the lectures so far, and there hasn't been one negative occurrence. We had one heckler once who was rapidly escorted from the building, and he knew he was going to get escorted, so he was kind of a cooperative heckler. But like, no one's coming there with any anything negative on their mind. They're there to listen to a psychological lecture and to have a deep discussion and to try to get their act together. And the goddamn journalists, they just don't seem to be able to fathom that. Like, they've got this false cynicism, or maybe real cynicism, that makes it absolutely impossible for them to believe that, you know, tens of thousands of people could actually be serious about improving their life, and that I could be having events that were basically 100% positive. And so online, I'm a bloody monster. You know, I'm a misogynist and a racist and a transphobe and what else am I? I'm a homophobe and a Nazi lots of times, and sometimes a Jewish shill, and well, there's a bunch of other things too.
Well, what disturbed me, excuse me, what disturbed me about you is when they pulled your books out of New Zealand. When a New Zealand bookstore decided to pull your books because of the Christchurch massacre. Like, what does a book on self-improvement and taking responsibility, what does that have to do with a horrific mass murder? I mean, the idea that they connected those two together, and that they decided that in some way or shape, your words of encouragement and recognizing the importance of discipline and of taking responsibility and self-reliance, that those things, your book somehow or another had something to do with someone doing something as awful as what happened at Christchurch. It's so distorted. And that's like the perfect example that I cite when I say, like, think about the fact that this guy's book was removed right after something had taken place that had literally nothing to do with anything you've ever said ever.
Yeah, well, they kind of got their comeuppance in some ways, because people started to point out that they were still carrying Mein Kampf. And so that turned out to be a problem. And then they were also carrying a book that showed you how to turn a semi-automatic into a fully automatic. And so, you know, you got to be careful when you go after someone for their sins, that you don't have a few sins of your own, like, lying around where people can, you know, sort of observe them. Anyways, they did reverse that decision, but
that's good.
Yeah, that was good. But it's very weird. And I'm going to the UK here right away. Now we're talking about me, and we weren't supposed to be, but I'm going to the UK right away because the paperback is launching there. And so I'm going to be talking to journalists, and talking to UK journalists, man. That's like jumping into a tub of, well, not full-grown crocodiles, but, you know, like 5 footers anyways.
So what you're trying to say is...
Yeah,